Okay, so this is going to be a slideshow of the movie. And if I mentioned this before, there's not going to be any audio, there's not going to be any video playing for this movie, not only because of copyright reasons, but also because, as I probably explained before, when it comes to any nominated performances that are over 30 minutes, I'm just not going to do any audio or video because that's going to take forever and I don't want to deal with copyright. So we're we're just going to do screenshot for every scene they're in. Not like every frame they're in, but just any major scene that they're in. It's just going to be that. Just screenshot of whatever they're doing, and I'll explain what happens in the scene, kind of spoiling the movie while explaining every part of the scene. And then there'll be other scenes where in this movie Ethel is not in it, but there's going to be some important things that relates to her, which is why I'm showing it. So here it is. Um, movie is Pinky, based on a novel by Sid Ricketts Summers or Sumner. So Daryl F. Zanuck, he's the director, presents Jean Crane, who is the main character, Pinky. She's the leading lady, and she is not black in any way. So I know, like I said, they used the actual white woman to play a part black person, but Jean Crane in real life is not black in any way, shape, or form. So for all you one drop rule people out there, no, Jean is not black. So that she plays the lead role of Pinky. Then there's Ethel Barrymore, who plays Miss M, who's the old white lady that Jean Crane character takes care of. And Ethel Waters plays Pinky's grandma. And William Lundigan plays Dr. Tom Adams, who is Pinky's boyfriend, who doesn't know that she's part black until later on. I know, spoiler alert, he finds out anyways, but how he reacts is I'll explain later. It's going to surprise you. But yeah, these are the four leads or the four main characters in this movie. And the movie itself only got nominated for 3 Oscars. I know Ben Mankiewicz usually explains this part, but he's not in it. There's no like prelude to this film to explain the history of it, and I'm not gonna like go long-winded with it. But the only thing that the film got nominated for was Best Leading Actress for Jean Crane and Best Supporting Actresses for the two Ethels. So none of them won, by the way, none of them won. But that's the only thing the film got nominated for was Best Leading Actress for Jean Crane. Ethel Barrymore and Ethel Waters were nominated for Best Supporting, and that is it. So there's that, and we'll go on to the next slide. And let's see. And it all starts with Pinky basically coming down to the south to visit her grandma, and that's Ethel Waters right there doing laundry. And basically, she doesn't recognize her at first, but once she realizes that's her granddaughter, she gives her a good hug, and it's like, oh, we're reunited again. Basically, she sent her off to school to be a nurse, so that's why she was away from her family because she went to nursing school. And basically, because of how white she is, she basically could get a better education. So she went off north to go to school, got a nursing degree, came back, and basically, just to help her grandma. And that's nice. And, I do like the relationship between her and her grandma because, like, okay, I know it's kind of a spoiler because I'm going to get to this movie eventually, but when it comes to, um, Imitation of Life, and there's two versions of Imitation of Life. There's the one in the 1930s and the one in the 1950s. The 1950s is one I'll go really deep in because that's the one that got nominated. But you know, um, when it comes to Imitation of Life, how the biracial daughter treats the mom is just so terrible. It's just it just makes me just hate her. It's like, look, just because you turn out to look the way you do does not mean you gotta treat your mom like that. But and Pinky, Pinky doesn't look down on her grandma. She doesn't like be embarrassed of her because she's black, and you know she uh she treats her well. She doesn't like disdain her for making her part black or whatever. She loves her grandma. She's honestly the only caretaker she had. um she basically raised her for the most part after her mother died, and I'll explain her mother later because, like I said, there's a lot of plot holes. I would say plot holes, but just a lot of not discussed parts of the movie that I wish kind of was discussed. But I'll put my theory in it later. So she's visiting her grandma, and she's just contemplating her time up there. And of course, I think her grandma finds out that she was technically passing up there, which, I mean, what do you expect? You sent your daughter to a mostly white school. What do you think she's going to do? Just say, oh yeah, I'm black, by the way. I mean, they will probably kick her out before the first semester. So in a way, she felt like she had to pass just so. And not that she was doing it on purpose. I think it was just a case of nobody asked about, her and her family or anything like that. So people just assume she was white because how she looks. I mean, and this is Jean Crane, by the way. If I didn't, make that clear enough, this is Jean Crane. She plays Pinky, and she's white. Okay, she's a white actress. She's not mixed with anything. So yeah. So, but yeah. So basically, she admits to her grandma, yeah, she was passing for white, and her grandma was kind of getting on her for that. So it's like, you can't be just lying to people up there. That's worse than when Peter was denying Jesus, and she actually used that analogy. So it's like she was literally shaming her granddaughter for basically lying about her heritage, which I definitely understand both sides in this case, because like I said, I mean, her grandma told her never to be ashamed of herself, while Pinky kind of feels like, hey, if nobody brings it up, why should I tell anybody anyways? So it kind of makes sense. And besides, I mean, she probably doesn't want to go through the racism that other black people go through, but in a way, she is kind of going to go through it in this movie as I go along. But yeah. So, she feels bad about it. She feels bad about, lying to her grandma. So that's why she's crying and whatnot. So, the little white tears, mostly white tears. So, of course, that's not going to work in this movie. But, her grandma basically, just makes her reflect on her decisions of what she did up there. And oh yeah, and also because she was passing, that's where she met her boyfriend, that some handsome white doctor that she didn't tell that she was black. So now her grandma's basically kind of getting on her for leading someone on, that doesn't know her heritage. So now she you know has to, if she ever sees him again, she has to break the news. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm black. Which he'll come around, but that's not until later. But yeah, so basically, she feels bad about it. She actually feels bad about it, unlike the one in Imitation of Life. She doesn't fit. She actually feels ashamed for passing. But like I said, what else could she do? But of course, they make up for it. And, it's fine. The next day, and she helps her grandma out, and her grandma does laundry for a living. Now she helps. She's not like sh it's not like she's a total maid for white people or whatever, but she'll do anybody's laundry around town. So whoever needs laundry done, she'll do it. So she helps, she does the black people's laundry, she does the white people's laundry. So at least she's not just specifically doing white people's laundry. So she does everyone's laundry. So there's that. And Pinky's kind of, and her name's Patricia, by the way. Pinky's just a nickname because of how pink her skin is, like most white people, of course. So her name's Patricia Johnson, and the grandma's name is Dicey Johnson. So that's Dicey Johnson, and that's Pinky. I mean Patricia Johnson, aka Pinky. So that's their actual name. So at least I like the fact that they gave Ethel's character an actual name. Okay, I know Dicey's not really, it sounds like a nickname in itself, but that is, what they call her. They give her a last name, a first name, so at least she's not like Mammy, just, Mammy and no other name. So she basically has an actual first and last name. And her same thing with her granddaughter, even though everyone calls her Pinky, from around the neighborhood at least. But Pinky was asking her grandma, like, okay, how much do you get paid? Because basically, her grandma is the one who kind of helped pay for her schooling, so she kind of appreciates that, but she also doesn't want her grandma to get ripped off either. So there's a guy in town, um, gosh, I forgot his name. Um, there's a black part of town. Of course, that's where her grandma lives, of course. But there's a black guy named. Uh, he shows up in the movie, but let me find his name because I don't want to just say that black guy. Um, Jake Walters, I think. Yeah, Jake Walters. And honestly, I'm just gonna call him Mr. Shiesty because he's one of those slick talking, get out of paying you kind of guys. So yeah, even though we were going through like just the worst of racism, we still had some shiesty people in the neighborhood. Not that they deserve anything bad or anything, but yeah, we do still have some shiesty people, even if we're going through a lot of stuff from the outside. But yeah, so basically, Jake Walters was kind of ripping, not paying Miss Johnson, the money she should get for doing the laundry. So Pinky's like, oh no, Grandma, you're not gonna get ripped off like that. So basically, she takes herself into the white part. So Pinky basically goes to the black part of town to talk to Jake, and let me use my pointer. So this is Jake Walters, and honestly, his last name is similar to Judge Waters over here. So this is Judge Waters, that's Jake Walters, but I'm gonna give them the nickname Shiesty Jake and Grandpa Judge Grandpa over here. And I'll tell you why I'll call him Judge Grandpa later. But anyways, so Pinky goes to the black part of town to talk to Jake Waters, aka Mr. Shiesty over here, about paying her grandma the $15 that he owes her. And while she does that, this lady, I think Jake's girlfriend or something, who basically is wondering why he's talking to this white woman. But of course, he explains, oh, no, that's Miss Dicey's granddaughter. And she's like, oh, so, and yeah, once they find out you're related to a black person in the black part of town, they just treat you like a black person. So, in a way, she was gonna get into a cat fight with her over it, and not only because she was suspicious of why you're talking to her man, but also he also explained, hey, I'm just giving her the money. It's like, oh, you mean the money out of my purse? So basically, Jake doesn't even want to pay money out of his own pocket. So he's that shisty. He would take money from his girlfriend to pay somebody else. So yeah, that's real dusty right there. So she was about to fight her, and I think she had a little pocket knife in her stocking, and they were going to get into a scuffle. I don't think she was going to kill her. I think she was just going to threaten her. But these two redneck cops over here all of a sudden get involved and say we can't even have our own police force in the neighborhood. So yeah, so basically you have redneck one, redneck two over here, roughing them up, and one of them actually slapped the lady over here, and I forgot her name, but they, slapped her like, how dare you touch this white woman? And then, she's like, oh no, she's colored too. And then they were like, yeah, right. And then they asked her, like, you heard what she said? And Pinky's like, yeah, yeah, I'm colored. It's true. So I like that at least Pinky mentions, hey, look, I mean, I'm not gonna lie about it. I mean, my grandma already shamed me for it, so I'm just gonna say, yeah. I mean, I'm technically colored. So once she tells them that, yeah, I'm black, quote unquote, too, that's when they dropped the chivalrous act and started, he was about to slap Pinky as well. It's like, oh, I ought to slap you too for being a, N word. And they actually say the N word. Okay, this movie actually goes hard for its time. So that's one thing I think. I think the movie had it didn't show in every part of the United States for obvious reasons, especially the South, because they don't want to, look in the mirror and, reflect how they really are towards us. So, yeah, so this movie did not sugarcoat anything. Let's put it that way. So they actually said the N word with a hard ER, with these rednecks over here, and how they actually treat, the black people. I mean, of course it got, in real life it was a lot worse, but still, for a movie back in the late 40s, the fact they even mentioned to show something like this, it's like, wow, okay. At least they weren't going to soften things up like, Gone with the Wind or something. So I appreciate that. But yeah, but yeah, basically they take all of them to the courthouse. They take them to see Judge Waters. And like I said, Walters, I swear that's like the, a few letters different. So honestly, I'm going to call him Granddaddy Judge over here. So they take him to Granddaddy Judge over here, and he's one of the reasonable white people. Like I said, he's not a total redneck blowhard like these two. I'm trying not to cuss, but crackers. There you go. I can say crackers. Ritz crackers. You know, whatever. Salty crackers. Yeah, there you go. So, I don't want any pasties coming on my comment section saying, oh, that's a slur. Shut up. Anyways, so Grand Judge over here is one of the reasonable white people in this movie. So, he talks to, these three, and basically he kind of like softly reprimands her for, oh, you can't just bring a knife like that, you don't have a weapon on you. He doesn't arrest any of them, so he just lets her go. He warns Jake, hey, don't be ripping people off, next, I had to help you last time. Next time won't be, next time I won't help you. And basically he dismisses those two. And then the last person he talks to is Pinky. And yeah, when he talks to her, and the reason I even call him the Granddaddy Judge is, and the reason I call him Granddaddy Judge is because honestly, and I don't know if the director, and I'm sorry, when I said beginning earlier, and I know I'm probably going to put the little text under it, but Daryl Zanuck is the producer of the film. Okay, he's not the director. The director of Pinky is Elia Kazan, if that's how you pronounce it. It's Elia Kazan. He's the director, and Daryl Zanuck is the producer. So, but I think either way, the producer, director have some say in the storyline and how it goes. But I don't know if they had any intention with it because they don't really state it out loud. But I think when it comes to Granddaddy Judge over here, I think he is, and here's my theory. I'm just gonna put it out there. I think Granddaddy Judge is actually the grandfather of Pinky. I mean, because think of it. Why does Pinky look the way she does? Okay, because yes, I know there are a lot of black people, and like I said, there's some quadroons and octoroons, but they didn't become quadroons and octoroons just within black people. Let's be honest here. The reason why we have so many shades of black is because of white dudes dilly-dallying with black women, mostly unconsensually. But in this case, I think Granddaddy Judge over here is Pinky's grandma. And why do I think him specifically? Because when he talks to Pinky, he basically says, like, look, I known you and your grandma for a long time, and your grandma's a dear friend of mine, and I really respect her. And the fact that he's willing to say that, and those two rednecks are still in the corner like that, it's like, wow, you're gonna admit that you have respect for a black person, a black woman, that much. I mean, a man can respect a woman without wanting to smash her, but something about it seems like there's more history between him and Grandma Dicey than than what's said. And I mean, come on. And there's a reason why Pinky looks the way she does. So I think back in the day when they were a lot younger, and maybe before he became a judge, I think him and Dicey had a consensual kind of like relationship. And I say consensual because I don't think he's the phallically assaulting type, if you know what I mean. You can't say the other word, but I don't think he's the one who will force himself on anyone. So I think him and Dicey probably had a thing going on, and that produced Pinky's half black grandma. I'm sorry, half black mother. Okay, because Granddaddy Judge did mention like, oh, when your mom died, it was hard on your grandma, so she had to take care of you. So that could have been Pinky's mom, could have been the judge's daughter, for all we know. And we never see, or there's no picture of Pinky's mom anywhere. So the fact that Pinky looks the way she does and Dicey looks the way she does, where's the middle ground? Where's the middle ground of why you go from Dicey and to Pinky and how they look phenotypically? So I'm thinking Pinky's mom had to be biracial. Had to be biracial. So I'm thinking, how is she biracial? That means Dicey must have got with a white guy. And what white guy? Probably, like I said, Judge Waters. Now, like I said, I don't know if that's what the director or the producer intentions were, but I mean, he just, talks to um, Pinky like an actual grandfather, and he kind of encourages her and says, "Oh, don't worry, you have a bright future," and I, it's like some grandfatherly wisdom. So I thinking this guy might actually be her grandfather. So I don't think he forced himself on Dicey. I mean, because if he did, he wouldn't care what came out afterwards. But the fact that he still he respects Dicey and is cool with her, and he knows Pinky from a long time ago. So it's like, okay, he must be that granddaddy that doesn't say he's a granddaddy, but he acts like one from behind the scenes. So who's to say? So that's just my theory out there. That's just my theory. I think Judge Waters is Pinky's grandfather. So I'm just putting it out there. And so basically, Jake Waters, aka Mr. Shiesty himself, um comes to Miss Dicey's home. I think Pinky's out and about. So you think he was going to pay her the $15 that he owes her. I mean, that's what they pretty much end up in the police department for, because he wasn't going to pay her for doing the laundry. So he tries to get out of that. So he comes by and visits, and I mean, he's so shisty. I mean, he's just eating up the food that, she did not offer you anything, sir. Why are you eating off of her plate? Like, come on. So basically, um, he finds a letter that, and I didn't know what it meant at first, but I think, it was a letter from Pinky's white doctor boyfriend that came from, up north. And basically he's saying that he was going to visit her. He was going to come down and see her. But, I don't think Pinky got the letter. So Dicey had it, but of course, and here's the thing about her, she doesn't read. She can't. Well, she's illiterate. So, like I said, there's some black people that didn't go to school, and they had to basically work since they were children, so they didn't get a good education. So, she finds a letter that she can't read. And even though she can't read it, she knows it came from up north, from I guess, the college or whatever that Pinky was working at, not working, but getting her education from. So she knows it came from where Pinky last was. So basically, she sensed that, oh gosh, somebody from up there is going to come down here and try to, make, Pinky, go up there with them or something. So she doesn't want her granddaughter to leave her, and I understand, she's old, she's alone. I mean, she doesn't, and not that she doesn't have any friends, but I mean, there are people like Jake over here, taking advantage of her financially. So it's like, it would be nice to have some familial help to, make sure nobody's taking advantage of her poor grandmother. So, she doesn't want her granddaughter to leave. I mean, she wanted her to get a better education, but now she's back. She kind of just wants her to stay. So, Jake basically reads the letter for her, but Dicey takes it back, and she basically disposes it by burning it up in the oven because she was still cooking. So, she wants to make sure that Pinky never finds out about it, even though, let's be honest, someone's going to visit her anyways, and you'll see who. But, she doesn't want Pinky to know about it at all. So Jake is like, oh, well, I can write a letter back to send them away so they won't come back and, see Pinky. But of course, all that writing and postage costs $15. So with that, Shiesty Jake gets out of paying money again by promising Miss Dicey that, he can write a letter that will send the person back. And but of course that costs money, so that gets them out of paying, Miss Dicey. But of course that doesn't work because somebody comes visit Pinky anyway. So you'll find out who later on. This is where it's gonna get dark, and yeah, like I said, this movie doesn't pull any punches. Now, of course, they still kept some things restricted, but the fact that they even brought up scenes like this, I'm gonna explain what happens. So basically, Pinky's just going out for a walk, having some self-reflection, and just thinking about Tom up north. That's her boyfriend's name, Tom. And these two, and I don't think these are two SOB police officers that was harassing her and Jake and his girlfriend earlier. But I think these are just some two random rednecks that just came up to her, and they're basically, try to act all fake gentlemanly, saying, "Oh, what's a pretty girl like you doing in town like this?" And Pinky's like, "Look, buzz off, okay? I live here," and basically, and they say the N word too. These guys say the N word. Honestly, I think it's like, but then again, you could tell these are different guys from the one at the police station because they don't know. Because the other police station people, they know that she's black, but these guys don't know that she's part black. So, they just assume she's a white woman just walking by herself, and she's telling them to buzz off. And, they're like, "Oh, come on, we can't let a pretty thing like you be in an N-word town like this." And they did say the N-word, so. And of course, Pinky's even more put off by it, so she's basically gonna tell him to F off. Well, not F off. I mean, she doesn't. There's no. The only cuss word they have in this movie is the N word, okay? But there's no other cuss words besides that. But basically, in a very G-rated way, she's basically telling him to F off, okay? And once she tells him that I live here, basically these two rednecks put two and two together and realize, oh, that means she's an N-word too. And then they go from trying to be chivalrous to now just being straight up creeps, okay? And let me just go to the next slide on this because for some reason my thing isn't working. But yeah, so it gets worse than this. Not like, okay, I'll get to the next slide and kind of just tell you what happens. So, yeah. So basically, they try to assault her. Okay. Once they find out she's part black, then they get out of their car, try to basically have their way with her. And it's kind of like hard to watch for people who kind of like this stuff is very hard to watch. I mean, like I said, she doesn't get assaulted. Okay, just let anybody know she does not. They do not get. They don't get far with her. This is as far as they go. Just pinning her up the car. They don't assault her. They don't have their way with her. She but I am gonna say, okay, because here's like the fill in the blank part that it's a theory of mine. Like I said, I don't think the director um or anybody who worked on the movie had it all planned out, but here's what I think. Because think of it, remember, why does Pinky look the way she does? And remember, there are some people who are, and I call them part black, okay? I don't just say black, I say part black, especially if you don't look black, but you're some kind of black. I just kind of go by percentage. But there's a reason why Pinky looks the way she does. And I just explained earlier with the judge lawyer dude is possibly her grandfather that him and Dicey got together and they probably had Pinky's mom because there's no mention of Pinky's dad anywhere. So they don't mention a dad at all. They just mention a mom that died earlier when Pinky was probably a kid or something. So if her mother is probably half black and there's no mention of a dad anywhere, let's put it this way. A scene like this is probably what happened to Pinky's mom that produced it Pinky. Yeah, exactly. I know. It's like, what? Yeah, I'm sorry, it's a dark theory, but this is what I think. I think Pinky's already half black mom probably went through something like this and it produced it Pinky. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a reason why, we come in different skin tone. And like I said, and like I said, white dudes don't want to admit it, and white people, period, don't want to admit it. Like I said, they're the reasons why we even have light-skinned and black people to begin with, okay? They are the reasons why we even come in light skin. And during that time, like I said, and this is the really messed up part, while they were lynching black dudes for simply just looking at their women or whistling at their women, here they are just rustling up, phallically assaulting any black woman or girl, because some of them were underage as well, any black woman or girl that came their way. And no justice was ever done. No justice was ever done. So yeah. So a reason why there could be a quarter black like Pinky, or even less than that, some 1/8, the octoroon, or basically a white person with some black ancestry, is because of scenes like this. Scenes like this is why some black people turn out very, very light and bright and white. Because why? Because, like I say, because I know they use the Jezebel stereotype, and I'll explain that much, much later, but they'll use the Jezebel stereotype to make it seem like, oh, black women just want a, piece of that white, shrimpy cock, which no one's interested in that like that. I mean, like I said, were there some consensual relationships? Yes, like with Dicey and the judge, lawyer dude. Okay, I think their relationship was consensual. But I think when it came to Pinky's mom, those represented the relationships that were not consensual. And yeah, so, and they didn't explain how Pinky's mom died or anything. I don't know if she was sick. I don't know if she just went through a bunch of depression, and I don't know. But basically, I think all in all, how Pinky looks the way she does is because her half black mother, and I'm sorry if I keep this scene on for long. I know it's hard to watch, and but even if it's just like literally two white people or three white people, but still, I mean, this is something a lot of black women go through. But like I said, the reason why Pinky looks the way she does is because I think her already half black mother went through something like this. And unlike Pinky, who at least got away, see, there they go. She pushes the dude before he gets any closer, before he, whips it out or anything. So yeah, she pushes him and runs away. So thank God she got away. She got away unscathed. Okay. But her mother, her possibly half black mother, probably did not get away. And that's why Pinky looks the way she does. So I think if anything, she was probably born out of a situation like that, or conceived out of a situation like that, and that is very, very terrible. And it just speaks to what black women definitely go through when it comes to living in this country, and it's just. And honestly, it's one of the many reasons I personally don't even want to be with a white guy. Because if y'all grew up basically seeing black women as nothing but a sex doll that you can just have your way with, how are you gonna all of a sudden respect me as a person now? Like, I'm not saying all of them are like that, but come on. I mean, just, bruh, just ew. Just, I mean, if your grandpa, your peepop is bragging about stuff like this back in the day, like, bruh, I'm not gonna feel any kind of comfortable. So just, ew. But yeah, I added those scenes, even though Ethel is not in the scene, but still, it kind of reflects on how Pinky, even though the movie does explain it in depth, it does, in my opinion, kind of bring about how she looks the way she looks genetically, like what does her mom look like? And they never show any picture of her mom, by the way. But like I said, I assume her mom is half black because Dicey and the judge got with each other, and the judge kind of does, you know, feel fondly for Dicey, even though they didn't really get married or anything. But they were probably in a consensual relationship, and that produced the Pinky's half black mom, and then her half black mom was probably just walking around, just minding her business, and then seeing like that previous scene happened to her, and well, that produced the Pinky. So unlike Pinky, who got away from that kind of assault, her mother unfortunately didn't, and that probably is the reason why her daughter looks like this, which is vastly different than how her grandmother looks. So yeah. Yep, so conception from assault basically is how I think she came out looking like this, okay? Conception from assault, which made her look whiter than basically her grandmother. But anyways, this scene, like I said, so Pinky, like after that horrific scene, Pinky, like it says, "F it, I'm going home. Well, not going home. I'm going up north. I'm going back. I'm not. This is why I left. Well, this is one of the reasons I left in the first place. besides getting education. I'm like, I can't deal with the racism. I understand. And honestly, kind of devil's advocate. This is kind of why I kind of get why people passed back then. It's like if black people go through this all the time and people find out you're black by association, technically, it's like who wants to go through that? Like who wants to go through that? So, if we look like her, we probably wouldn't say we were black either. I wouldn't diss black people either, but I'm like, I wouldn't say, hey, I'm black either, because I sure as crap wouldn't want, some, Ritz cracker, trying to give his way with me. And yes, I'm gonna say it. I'll put Ritz in front of it, but yes, I'm gonna say a couple of crackers here and there. Okay, I don't care, you know, whatever. But yeah, so Pinky basically, wants to go back, and her grandma just, uh, her, the reasons why her grandma looks distraught here is because, um, her neighbor, I wouldn't say her neighbor, but kind of her neighbor friend, someone she helped out, Miss M, and I'll explain Miss M because, like I said, she's played by Ethel Barrymore. And fun fact, Ethel Barrymore is, I'll get to her when I get to her. But basically, she came from Miss M's house, and Miss M is an old white lady who's sick now. She's sick, and and yeah, Dicey's like worried about her, and she does want to help, but she probably doesn't have the medical equipment to help her, and that's where Pinky comes in. And Pinky doesn't care about Miss M at all. Pinky thinks Miss M is just a Karen that just doesn't like black people at all, so she doesn't even want to help her. But, Dicey, is like, look, I know her for a while. She may be a grumpy old lady, but, she's not like the rest. But of course, Pinky doesn't believe it. So Pinky basically is convincing her grandma, like, hey, nah, I'm leaving. And she tells her grandma she's about to leave. And then, Dicey is like, she kind of makes an empty threat, even though I kind of like, want to see what that looks like. But basically, she's like, if you don't, look, I I put you money to go to school, and you're gonna use your nursing degree to help Miss Emma. If you don't, I'll whoop you, and some country analog, like I'll beat the hide off of you or something. And it's like, yeah, I don't think you're gonna beat your grown granddaughter like that. Even though I would like to see you try, but yeah, we know you're not gonna do it. But basically, she kind of threatens her to stay and help out. But Pinky's like, look, Grandma, no, I'm taking my suitcase, I'm leaving. And, she makes no qualms about it. And of course, when a threat doesn't work, Miss M, I mean, not Miss M, but Miss Dicey, uses the guilty card. I mean, the guilt card. She says something that makes Pinky kind of change her mind about it. So it's like, okay, well, you can leave if you want to. I'll help you pack. But, Miss M did help me when I was sick. And, Pinky doesn't believe it at first. But, she, Dicey tells her, oh, yeah, she did help me. She helped me when I was sick, while you were in school. Miss M helped me when I was sick. She helped me, she fed me, and, did all the stuff, to help me like you would if you were here. So, I think you owe her that much. So basically, she guilts her granddaughter to stay. So, if anybody helps, her grandma out, it's like, okay, I guess they can't be that bad if they help my grandma out. So, that's where she decides to say, help Miss M. Now, this is Miss M. She's played by Ethel Barrymore. Like I said, there's two Ethels in the movie. And fun fact, I was going to say this earlier, but fun fact, Ethel Barrymore is the great aunt of Drew Barrymore. Of course, the whole Barrymore family is just full of actors and stuff, but yeah. So Ethel Barrymore is the great aunt of Drew Barrymore. So yeah, so a lot of great aunt, great niece kind of correlation here. Ethel Waters is the great aunt of Crystal Waters, and Ethel Barrymore is the great aunt of Drew Barrymore. So yeah, just something if I didn't mention it before. But yeah, so this is the old white lady that basically supposedly helped Dicey out when she was sick, and Pinky just remembered her being the old crumpy Karen growing up, so she didn't think she was any different. And she's kind of a little crotchety, she's kind of little whatever, but she's just really old and really sick. So, Pinky uses her nursing technique to kind of help her as much as she can. And so she's, goes over to the house and helps her. And even though she kind of is annoyed by her at first, but, her grandma kind of tells her, like, oh, well, she's kind of like that. But, once she gets to know you more, she'll come around. So, she kind of has that optimism there where, she tries to see the best in people. So, there's that. And then this handsome doctor, this handsome black doctor, and gosh, I forgot his name. I'll probably type it in once I find out. But basically, this handsome doctor in town, basically finds out Pinky came back, and he kind of offers her like, hey, you could work you could work at my local clinic if you want. I mean, we definitely need more nurses like you to help around the black part of the neighborhood. And grandma's like, yeah, yeah, go for it. And Pinky's like, look, I'm not gonna stay here for long. I mean, I'm already helping Miss M out, and once I'm done helping her, I'm leaving. So she kind of uh, makes it to where she kind of feels like she's not going to stay long. So as much as she probably wanted to help, she's like, nah, I ain't going to stay here. And seriously, I mean, besides the fact that this guy's just, wait, let me just, the fact that this guy's just hot. Okay, I'm surprised. Like I said, this movie came out in 1949. Okay, do you really think they wanted to see black doctors back then? Black legit doctors, like I said, the most they would have us is the subservient roles. The most they would have us is just roles that were entertaining or cooning stuff, and the fact that they actually don't mind showing a black, prominent, handsome doctor like this guy right here. I mean, wow. I mean, kudos to the director. I mean, seriously. So, I mean, yeah, I mean that's great representation. Yes, there were black professional doctors back then, so it's not like we couldn't be a doctor back then. There were some black doctors that had their own thing going on, their own clinic, and they were well certified and had the education. So, yes, I like that they showed that, and not all of us were struggling and living in shacks and stuff and whatever. But yeah, so I like that they showed this guy. He's so handsome. And but of course, can't have a hot black guy without the white guy overshadowing. But this is Tom. Doctor, I forgot his last name, but yeah, this is Tom. This is Pinky's boyfriend that came up from North to visit her. And he doesn't know that she's part black. So, you know. And Pinky, um, she now, it's not like she's ashamed, but at first she probably didn't trust Tom enough to tell him that, oh, wait, my grandma's black, by the way. But, she didn't want him to see Dicey, and she didn't want them to meet just yet because, I mean, basically they'll show that, yes, this is the guy I was passing for. So she didn't feel like she could trust Tom enough to meet her grandma, but she does tell him, yes, I'm part black, and that's why I live here. Because Tom came in and thinking that, oh, you're staying here? Jeez, why are you staying in this part of town? It's kind of, what, are you doing charity work or something? And at least, here's the thing about Tom, he's not a total douche. He's not a racist douche, so he's not like saying the N-word, he's not looking down on anybody, but he didn't think that she would actually live in a place like this because of how she looks. So he thought she was just doing nursery charity work or something. But she explained, like, I lived here, this is my grandma's house, she's the one who actually paid for me to go to school. So yeah, the reason I'm even a nurse is because of her. So Tom is like, oh, well, this is awkward. But they talk and whatnot, and they have the little romance and stuff. And honestly, this is probably why they use someone like Gene Crane to play this role instead, because they work, because I think with production, they were gonna use someone like Lena Horne or Freddie Washington to play the role, and they're like really really light skinned, so they could pass for like half black at least or part black or something. But you know, they were still technically black. So just imagine a black woman being treated in a romantic light by a white guy. Yeah, they weren't going to show that. They were not going to do that at all. Yeah, so they don't mind black women getting smutted out by a white guy, but a black woman getting treated with princess treatment by a black guy, I mean a white guy, yeah, that wasn't gonna happen. Especially not in the 40s and 50s. They weren't that progressive. So that's why, and honestly, that's why a lot of the whole tragic mulatto thing, they use white female actresses to play these roles as part black or half black or something because, they don't want. And then there's a lot of layers, and honestly, I'm not going to go too in depth with the whole tragic mulatto thing, but basically, it's more to. It's like it's like the only time that the audience is going to feel sorry for a black person is if they don't look black at all. Yeah, I know that's the messed up part of it all, but the only time that the white audience, is going to feel sorry for a black person is if they don't look black at all. So the tragic mulattoes is, oh, this white girl is getting treated like a black person, and oh my goodness, but she's not technically that black looking, so it's like I feel sorry for her. Like, yeah, whatever. But honestly, Pinky is not one of those typical tragic mulatto movies, but let's continue. So basically, her, Tom Reednight, they talk and all that stuff. But anyways, next. And this is honestly okay. As much as Miss Dicey and Miss M are supposed to be friends, this is literally kind of the only time they're even interacting, and they don't even talk at all. So yeah, this is all the nominated ladies in one scene. So you have Jean Crane, you have Ethel Waters, you have Ethel Barrymore. So yeah, all the nominated ladies in one scene. But yeah, but literally Dicey and Miss M don't even have any dialogue with each other. So that kind of it kind of just I kind of wish they did talk outside of Pinky being there or whatever. So I wish they did have a conversation with each other because it's like if you guys are friends, like how are you not really talking to each other like that? Okay, she's like give you a back rub or something, and they don't even talk. So it's like how am I supposed to believe you guys are cool with each other if y'all don't even talk? So I mean, like she talks to your granddaughter more, she talks to you. That's like really I'm supposed to believe this friendship, but whatever. But yeah, just another day of helping Miss M, with her old self and whatnot. So add the other lady visitor that came to visit Miss M. She's like her cousin or something, some old white lady. She's a Karen. So she kind of comes in and Miss M's kind of annoyed with her, and the cousin doesn't really read the room that she's just being annoying, but she's surprised that about Pinky, and like, oh, I didn't know she looked like that, because she knows that she's Dicey's granddaughter, but she didn't know she looked that white. But yeah, so after she leaves, and then Miss M basically, and oh yeah, and this is the white doctor that kind of helps and kind of recommended Pinky to help Miss M. And the doctor's cool. Like he's one of the, like I said, there's few white people that are kind of cool in this movie. And here's the thing, even though not every white person is racist towards black people, but I don't really always, I mean, there's got to be a balance. I like a good balance. I like, you know, yeah, show the bad and evil to be aware of, but also show that there is some good out there, but don't overly show the good to where it makes it seem like it wasn't that bad either. So yeah, they had a few good ones there, but let's not forget how most of them really are. So this the doctor, I forgot what this doctor's name is too, but he's cool. He's kind of like the judge. No, outside of having anything to do with Miss Dicey or anything. So no, I don't think this is like a grandfather or a potential grandfather either. But I think he's just a doctor that's actually just cool with black people. Like he doesn't have a problem with them at all. So he just recommended Pinky to help Miss M. That's all. And I think while Pinky wasn't there was a scene where Miss M talks to the doctor about writing, something in her will, because she was going to leave a will, and just in case she dies, and she wanted him to basically signify it. So she asked for his signature on it because she was too weak to write. And the doctor was like, "Are you sure you want to, do this?" And she was like, "Yeah." So just write your name, just stamp of approval and all that. And so the doctor kind of helped her write her will while Pinky wasn't around, because Pinky doesn't know what anything about the will at all. So so basically that time is coming close for Miss M over here. So I'll get to the next thing. Pinky was out of the room when Miss M was signing her will. Dicey was still in the room. So the camera kind of panned out to, everybody else, and then it panned out to, pan to Ethel's, character, just, looking sad because she knows her friend's about to die. So she's kind of sad, and she kind of witnessed the will being written. So, she was a witness of the will being written. So she knows there's a will, and of course she can't read, so she doesn't know what's in it, but she knows that her friend is about to die and is about to leave something to someone. So, I don't think she really cares what's in the will anyway. She just, is sad that her friend's about to leave, and the friend she doesn't ever interact with as far as we see from the movie, but she's still sad. I mean, I really can't get why she's sad. I mean, it's like if they show them actually interacting, I will believe it. You know, I would actually believe it. If they showed more interaction between her and Miss M, I would actually believe the friendship enough to feel sorry for why she's sad. But it's like, we don't even see you guys talk, so why should I feel sad that you're sad? But okay, you know what? It's fine. Yes, they have a dramatic lighting here. So this is the Miss M dies scene. So yeah, like I said, Pinky's right here, Miss Dicey's right here, and Miss M's in the corner, basically going to the dark. Well, I wouldn't say dark side, like she's going to hell or something, but she dies. So basically, she dies of her old age, and they're just waiting for it to happen. And once it happens, you know, yeah, Dicey's like crying on the bed, like, "Oh, why, Lord, why did you take her?" And well, she's not saying all that, but she's just really sad about it. And of course, Pinky's like, "Wow, I actually was cool with her now," because they got along once they started talking to each other, and she finds out that Miss M's not a complete Karen, so they actually got along before she died, so that was nice. So yeah, everyone's sad. That's the last scene of Miss M. So, but it's not about Ethel Waters. It's about Ethel Barrymore. So that's what we came to see here for. This is what this video is about. And so they go to her funeral, and and it's nice. So she accompanies her grandma, to Miss M's funeral. And the doctor, the white doctor dude, comes in, and he comes with the will. So he comes in with the will that he basically wrote his signature on, basically to, I guess, give it validity or something. And so basically, so when Dr. McGill, that's the white doctor's name, right here, that's Dr. McGill, that's his name. When he reads Miss M's will, it starts off, and this is how this friendship between Dicey and Miss M was kind of one-sided. I mean, not that I think Miss M was a complete Karen, but I mean, let's just say she was maybe Karen light, maybe. But when Mr. or Dr. McGill starts reading the will, when referring to Dicey, it says, "To my dear servant and friend." Yeah. I mean, like I said, watch the movie and hear him yourself. That's what he says. "To my dear servant and friend, Miss Dicey, I leave all my clothes to you." So basically, she gets all her clothes, which we don't even know if she could fit them. And she says that all those shoes that she has, she probably couldn't fit them because they were a size too small. So not only can Miss Dicey probably not fit Miss Ebb's shoes, but she probably can't even fit her regular clothes too. Because I don't know if she was as big as her or not, but who knows? But still, I mean, yay, I get your lame, fashionless clothes. That's an upgrade. But that's all she left Miss Dicey. So, but yeah, but the fact that she put servant before friend, that's like, wow, really? But that kind of shows like even like here's the thing. Yes, there are good white people, and then there are the racist douches of the world. But there's also the in-betweeners too. Because racism is not just a black, well, not just literally, but figuratively, it's not just a black and white thing. It's not just either right wing, left wing. There's always an in-betweener somewhere. There's levels to this. There's spectrums to this. So a white person could be your quote unquote friend and still kind of see you as less than. You know what I mean? A white person can seem all nice and friendly to you and still see you as less than. So I think that's the thing with Miss M. I mean, yeah, she might have helped Miss Dicey out, and honestly, we're just taking Miss Dicey's word for it. So, I mean, if Miss M helped her just like she described, great. But I'm sure she was probably just helping the only person that was willing to clean her house. So maybe it's a transactional kind of thing. Even with the granddaddy judge guy, Judge Walters. Like I said, Walters, Waters, I get the two last names mixed up. So granddaddy judge. So even between him and her, possibly, if that's Pinky's grandfather, that could have been a one-sided relationship. And now, yeah, it could have been consensual, but he probably just saw her as eh, just a good time and that's it. He probably didn't see her as wife material enough to risk his career for her. So, they just probably got together and there you go. That's Pinky's mother for you, possibly. But I think Miss Dicey's relationship with those two white people have always been one-sided, and I don't think she really realizes that, but that's just something I realize. I think she's having one-sided friendship and relationships with these white people, maybe because, like I said, low self-esteem. She feels like she has nobody else, and she just has her granddaughter in her life, and that's it. So that's that just to point out how one-sided this friendship is based on this will. When you put to my dear servant and friend, yeah, that just shows how Miss M really saw Miss Dicey. But yep, that's the part of the will that Miss Dicey gets. And then, of course, when there's more to the will as Dr. McGill keeps reading. But the biggest part of the will turns out to be for Pinky, who ends up getting her, Miss M's whole house. So Miss M left her whole house, her estate to Pinky. So basically she get the biggest uh, deal out of it. So I guess Miss M didn't have any kids, didn't have any grandkids of her own. So basically, the closest person I guess she wanted to give the house to was someone who was basically helping washing her butt for the last couple of weeks or so. So, yeah. So I don't know, it was maybe because she felt like Pinky was educated enough to know what to do with it, or what. I mean, why not give it to Miss Dicey? But then again, there is going to be a part of the will that's going to be taken to court about it, because like I said, Miss M's, Karen cousin who came over, basically is gonna, well, I'll tell you probably in the next scene, but basically Pinky is, she doesn't want anything to do with it. Like, she doesn't hate Miss M, but she doesn't want her house. She doesn't want, she just want to go back home. She, well, not home, but she just wants to go back up north. She doesn't want any trouble in the South. She's already, seen what happens, and she's not even that black, but, she doesn't want to deal with the BS of, whatever white people are going to try to do to her. So she just kind of doesn't want it. But, her grandma basically, encourages her to, I think her grandma is just as worried about it as she is, because like I said, as an obvious black person, she knows what, and she even tells Pinky, like, if white people is something that they don't want you to have, they sure will make every attempt to take it from you. So she knows, she definitely knows. And like I said, most of the town knows Pinky. They know who her grandma is, so it's not like she can lie about her heritage enough to keep the house. So, and then of course, Shiesty Jake comes in, and he gives his 2 cent while eating her plate of chicken that's on the table. It's like, wow, Jake, really? But yeah, but he gives his 2 cent that if he was her, he'd go up north and not even worry about these people. Just he probably figured that I don't think he was gonna get any part of the will, but if he could, he would. But he basically told Pinky like maybe you should just go up north. So, she's reflecting about it. She's thinking about it. She's thinking, because at on one hand, she does want to honor Miss M enough to keep her end of the deal, but the other hand, she doesn't want to deal with the racist BS that might come afterwards. So her grandma's not trying to, totally scare her off, but she is trying to warn her, like, just be prepared what these people are going to do if you want to keep this house or keep that house. So, her grandma encourages her the best way she can without giving her false hope, of course. But, Miss Dicey is a little sick and Pinky, and I like this part. She actually gets down and dirty and actually does laundry. A white woman doing actual labor. Love it. Wow, I know she's technically her character is supposed to be part black, but hey, if this is the closest to see a white woman doing a chore for a black woman, I'm all for it. Okay, I'm just saying the closest we're gonna see a white woman do a chore for a black woman on screen, love it, love it. But yeah, Miss Dicey's a little sick. She's not like definitely ill or anything, but Pinky tries to help her grandma out, tries to raise some money because nobody was gonna hire her for the oh yeah, and this is the part where she's basically gonna be taken to court, so Miss M's Karen cousin is trying to fight for the will, thinks that she should have everything that Miss M owns basically, and no N word. She doesn't say the N word, but she did call her a colored person, but there was a scene that, like I said, Ethel's not in it, so I didn't include it, but the Karen cousin of Miss M basically doesn't want Pinky to have any possession of Miss M. And they also think because she's her nurse, she was Miss M's nurse and she was with her in her final days, that she probably put some, because she, gave her some shots, to feel better or whatever. And they assume that she probably gave her some shots that made her woozy and discombobulated enough to put the will in her name. So, the Karen cousin probably, was thinking that Pinky used her nurse's practitioner license to basically give Miss M some kind of drowsy needle to kind of make her, loopy enough to sign the will over to Pinky. So it's like, oh, she made her sign when when she wasn't coherent, so she doesn't deserve it at all. You know how white people like to make up some stuff just for us to not have anything. So that was definitely not the case, but Pinky has to fight for that. And and her boyfriend, Mr. Dr. Tom himself, he actually comes over to try to support Pinky because he heard about it too. And this is when he meets Miss Dicey in person. So he meets the black grandma of his girlfriend. And Miss Dicey isn't really too well, I wouldn't say she's not too fond of him, but she probably doesn't trust him, and rightfully so. I mean, it's like, okay, what do you want? And like I said, she's probably dealt with white guys before, i.e., Pinky's, grandfather, but so she probably doesn't trust him with, Pinky, even if Pinky's like trying to introduce them and basically assure her that he's one of the good ones. But of course, Miss Dicey doesn't want to feel like the third wheel, so she kind of just lets them have their moments. So, she just lets them talk, have their little romance while she just, goes in the house and probably reflects on her past or something. But, she just doesn't trust Tom. I don't think she trusts him. I don't think she hates him, but I don't think she trusts him. Even if he's surprisingly nice about the fact that, his girlfriend has a black grandma. So, and now this is the court scene. So, uh, granddaddy judge over here is actually vouching to be her lawyer. Actually, she went to him to ask him to be her lawyer since, he's probably the only one nice enough to actually do it. And he was a little hesitant to agree to be the lawyer, but he eventually agreed, and basically he's fighting on behalf of her to keep the will or keep the house that was in Miss M's will. And of course he see Miss Dicey in the back, and she's gonna be wanting to witness. And the Miss Karen's the cousin Karen's her the lawyer she hired, yeah, he's a piece of work himself. And basically, yeah, they talk to a couple other people before they get to Miss Dicey, but yeah, this slime ball, starts questioning her, saying you were in the room with Miss M, weren't you? And then instead of calling her like Miss Dicey or Miss Johnson or something, he calls her Auntie. And y'all thinking like, well, what's wrong with calling someone Auntie? Well, first of all, he ain't related to her, so you ain't calling me any familial names at all. And Auntie was like just one of those offhanded. Um, I mean, it's not like today. We call an older black man Unc or something. But back in the day, white people had little cutesy, insulting names for us, and Auntie is how they refer to an older black lady. Like, hey, Auntie, pick up my trash for me. Hey, Auntie, why don't you make my bed for me? Like, hey, Auntie, like, get out the side of the road or something. Like, just insulting. Just ways to say the N word without saying the N word. So yeah, I just felt like he's like disrespectful to her while trying to interrogate her basically. But basically he asked her, "Hey, you were in the same room as her when she was writing her will," and she was like, "Yeah." And then he basically asks her like, "Okay, does every time you see your granddaughter give her like a shot, does Miss M get drowsy or whatever?" And yeah, she said, "Yeah, it kind of calms Miss M down." And he basically tries to get to the part like because he asked her what do you think was in the will, but Pinky was worried like, oh great, she's gonna say, well, she's gonna expose the fact that she can't read so they can use that against her. But basically, Miss Dicey was smart enough to kind of say, well, I mean, if it's in somebody's will, who am I to read somebody's will? So it's like, basically instead of saying she can't read, she basically said, I have enough respect of a person to not read what's not meant to be read for everybody else. So, the prosecutor couldn't, get anything out of that with that response. And so basically, even though this looks like a face of somebody who lost the case, but it turns out, in the end, Pinky does win the lawsuit, and the will is going to be granted to her. And no, the cousin Karen doesn't get anything out of it, but Pinky wins the case, even though Miss Dicey is a little worried about it, because, like I said, I mean, if she's gonna stay and keep this house, then she's probably, these white people are gonna try to do their best to try to, white people don't let us have good things. I mean, for God's sake, I mean, Rosewood, Black Wall Street. Not that this happens in this movie, thank God, but still, I mean, Miss Dicey's probably seen it all to know that it probably in her mind won't last. So, and the judge also says, like, okay, not only does Pinky get everything that's in the will, or at least gets the house that Miss M left for her, but if anybody tries to mess with her property, they're going to be answered to. I mean, just because he says it doesn't mean it's going to be granted, but, we can only hope in this movie, at least. So, everybody's quiet. A whole bunch of white people just look at them while, Pinky and Dicey are passing by. Nobody, shouts out the N word or, harasses them about it or anything. And, Tom was there supporting her all the way. It's nice. And honestly, I do have to say, this is not the typical tragic mulatto movie where, this, white, mostly genetically, phenotypically white looking woman, has either a black mom or a black grandma, and people, well, she tries to hide it because she doesn't want to be persecuted like black people, and she's white enough to have the good life, but if anybody finds out, that all will be taken from her, and she wants to be loved like, a white woman and not get smutted out like a black woman or whatever. So she, you know, Pinky's not that, okay? Like I said, even though they added Tom for the romance appeal to it, you know, she he not only is he actually accepting of her being part black, but he actually wanted him. I'm sorry, he actually wanted her to actually go away with him. Now, even though he supported her throughout this whole court ordeal, he also figured like, look, you're better off at North with me. We can have actually good life together. Let's just forget this whole thing and start over, and let's make a new future for ourselves. And it's like, oh, that sounds cute and all, but I can't just leave my grandma with the house. I mean, not by herself, especially with her old and defenseless. No, I'm not gonna leave my grandma. I'm not gonna leave something Miss M gave me. Like, I mean, if I leave, then basically those other people win because it's like I'm not there to, honor that will. So instead of actually going with the man she loved, she actually refused to go with him. They had a little disagreement about it. They talk about it in a dramatic, romantic scene. And, she decides at the end of the day, look, I'm going to stay in this house. Miss M kept it for me for a reason. So, no, Tom, I can't go with you. So, he agrees and then he walks away and, they leave. He leaves. So basically, Pinky gives up, uh, what do you call it? The chance to live a white life, basically. She gives up the chance to live a white, comfy life, to stay and basically um, stay in the South with her grandma. But, of course, it's not so bittersweet because what she does with the house is that she makes it into a nursing school for black nurses. She makes it a clinic slash nursing school for black, obvious black women. And honestly, I love the ending of this movie. Like I said, Pinky is not like the light skinned mixed chick in Imitation of Life. When I get to that movie, I will explain the difference. But she's definitely not like her. She's not trying to run away from blackness constantly. She's not ashamed of it. I mean, she hides it because, she is like, hey, if nobody asks, I don't have to tell, especially if my grandma's not around. But, as long as she's with her grandma, as long as she's around other black people, she doesn't look down on them. She defends them. She admits that, yeah, I'm colored, and so she's not trying to hide her family or heritage from the man she likes. She even risked living a white comfy life just to support that part of her that's that people will look down on, and that's amazing. So she uses Miss M's house to open up a clinic slash nursing school for black women. And Miss Dicey, she was kind of getting on one of the, nurses that was trying to like tell her like, oh yeah, Miss Pinky, your grandma's, messes with the sterilizer again, and and she's giving that look saying, oh yeah, say something if you want to. But of course, Pinky's like, no, just let her clean around. She can do laundry here, and look, if she wants to clean the sterilizer, just let her. Okay, there's no sense to argue with her about it. So even Miss Dicey has her place in the clinic where she, she cleans, cleans the place. She probably gets actually paid, to do it. So, she doesn't have to just clean other people's stuff. I mean, she could clean, she's cleaning, hospital stuff. She's cleaning the, the nurse's outfit and all the other stuff. So basically she, basically could work with her granddaughter in running the clinic. And I like that. I like that. So she has a, you know, happy relationship with her granddaughter, even if it's kind of subservient, but it's what she's good at, for the longest. It's, what kept, Pinky in school. So now she's, giving back. And I like the fact that in a way, she's giving back to her grandmother and to the black community. And I love it. And then also, we see the handsome doctor again. So see, she did take the doctor's advice, or at least his offer, into making a clinic. Well, he has a clinic of his own, but I think they're just working together with it. So, he sent some of his patients over there to, for Pinky to check up on. And, I just liked it. And, It's good to see him again, anyways, with his handsomeness. So, yes, black medical professionalism. Like, yes. I mean, even for a film in the 40s, like late 40s, I'm like, yeah, I mean, certain parts I'm surprised they even put in, you know? Totally beats Gone with the Wind, that's for sure. As a whole movie, at least. And then basically, like I said, Miss M's clinic and nursery school. So, yes, her whole big house that was owned by a lonely old white woman is now a place for black women to be nurses and for black people to get clinical help. And all because, a part black, mostly white woman decided to embrace that part of her heritage and, not be ashamed of it. And that is the ending of Pinky. And next will be the rating of Ethel Waters' role in the movie shortly after this.